Welcome everybody to the CRS Workgroup. Our name is the Coastal Virginia CRS Workgroup, and we're definitely, that's where the bulk of our members are from, but we're expanding, and that's one kind of good outcome of COVID. I guess people can attend more frequently and not have to worry about the travel times, and people are attending from all across our state, which is so nice. And, please feel free to invite anyone who you think might be interested in participating in our meetings from any community in Virginia. We, of course, have people on sometimes that aren't in Virginia as well. So we welcome everyone to our meeting and, share the wealth of the CRS work group as much as we can, as much as it makes sense. So I know that there's some people from the western part of the state who have indicated they're interested in joining and participating more frequently, and we hope that we can, build up our interest to help out people from across the whole state. Okay, so I just wanted to encourage everybody, if you're just joining, to change your name and affiliation and your profile picture thing, and then also include in the chat, if you're a CRS community, what your rating is, and if you are joining the CRS and in a process to do that, please also indicate that in the chat. All right, so without further ado, let's get rolling. We did the Zoom manners. Everybody's very savvy now. Our meeting dates, these are the 2 meeting dates that we have scheduled out. I'm still monitoring what Newport News's facilities COVID compliance rules are. And as soon as it feels safe and makes sense to bring in-person stuff, we might do that. Right now, the Newport News facilities agreement, the meeting space is capped at 10. So I'm not sure it would be that helpful at this stage of the game. But as more people get vaccinated, maybe we can talk about meeting in person in the summer. We're going to do a little bit more of a conversation about in person, not in person later in the meeting. So I don't want to belabor any points now. These are the future meeting dates. The CECs, I get a lot of emails about CECs, and I'm so glad that we're able to provide that to y'all. I haven't submitted for September 2020. I like to submit 2 at a time to Anita if I can. Anita Larson is the CFM CEC approval person at ASFPM. And so I'll submit today and September. And so I hope that y'all are interested in getting CECs, and it's helpful to you all to have free CECs. This is my, regular plug for VFMA. I'm a board member of VFMA, and I'm pretty sure the VFMA president is on the phone, on the call. Kristen Owen, who was formerly with DCR and is now with Henrico County. Please join our organization. It is very inexpensive, and we are definitely improving and offering all sorts of wonderful opportunities for floodplain managers in the state. I just wanted to kind of jump back if I can. Let me see, literally if I can. Our next meeting, since I can kind of just share with you, is March 21st. We are going to be joined by the DCR floodplain team. We're going to hear from the new staff that have been hired. They're going to introduce themselves, and one of those staff people will be assigned the CRS coordinator role that Kristen had prior to being acting NFIP coordinator, and I think in addition to being acting NFIP coordinator. So look forward to a more in-depth conversation with the new DCR folks. They're trying desperately to build up their staff, and as you all know, I've sent around the new job descriptions announcements that came out for the upcoming positions that are available at DCR. So they're working hard to build up their manpower again. In addition to that DCR time, we're also going to hopefully hear from the city of Chesapeake. in another lessons learned presentation. Okay, so Madison's just told me March 21st is a Sunday, not a Wednesday. So I don't know what the heck I was thinking. Let me look at my calendar really quick. Okay, so did I write that wrong here? March 31st. Okay, so here I am on the CRS Workgroup website page, Coastal VA CRS Workgroup. No, coastalvacrs.com. So sorry about that. This should read March 31st, and I will change it on the PowerPoint before I post it online. Okay, good catch, Madison. All right, so hoping to hear from Chesapeake from their lessons learned after their most recent cycle visit where they advanced up to a class 7. So lots of good advancing happening in our region. ISO contacts, this is for those people who might be new and might not know. Emily Schmidt is on the line, right? I saw her, she's here from ISO. She's our Virginia ISO specialist and has been, that full transformation occurred in this month of 2021. There she is. Hello. Doug Reedy was our Virginia ISO coordinator, and he might still be working with some communities. But as of now, Emily is kind of your go-to gal. So if you have.
Doug has actually chosen to retire. So he, yep, sorry, I didn't get you that memo ahead of the meeting. So his current open workload is being split out amongst us. I've taken on some of it, but in an effort to not be overloaded, I've not taken on all of his open workload. So you may be hearing from various folks. You may certainly reach out to me to ask, and I can get you connected with who has your open assignment. But we've been working individually with communities on that transition.
Awesome. Okay, so I will revise this and note that Doug has moved on in his life into retirement, which is wonderful. Happy for him. Okay, cool. So today we're going to hear from Daryl Cook, and I just want to note our CRS Workgroup website. I'll put a link in the chat. This website is updated with some frequency now that we have a grant to dedicate direct resources to our CRS work. You'll see that the website will be updated a little bit more frequently moving forward, which is great. So just don't forget that this resource is available, and it's where all of our past meeting materials are located. So I haven't always done a follow-up email to include all of our documents from our meetings. They're always going to be here. You can see that I've been embedding the video recording of each meeting. So at this time, you're not eligible to get CEC credits for watching the meetings after the fact because there's no control over monitoring participation and stuff like that. So, just as an FYI, that isn't something that is available. But you can still view all of the slides. If there isn't a specific material that was distributed or referenced in a meeting, we make those available embedded links as well. Okay, so this Daryl Cook's presentation is contributing to our CRS Successes and Lessons Learned initiative of the work group. Don't forget that this resource is available to you. I try to kind of highlight things that have been shared and of course include the PowerPoint presentations, and advice and feedback is also included here. You can see I've kind of listed it for all of our presentations that have been made. So if you've had a recent cycle visit, you can expect that I'll be asking you to present similarly as I have asked Daryl and the folks in Chesapeake, Bobby and Rob. So all of the materials that are shared and the PowerPoint will be available here in addition to the past meeting materials. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Daryl, and he's going to share his screen. And if he isn't able to, then we're going to figure it out and I'll just advance slides for him.
All right.
And thank you,
Okay.
Daryl, for doing this for us.
Okay. What are you seeing?
Yep, it looks wonderful.
Okay, great. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Daryl Cook from James City County, and wanted to give you a review of our experience through our recent cycle visit, and wanted to give you a little bit of background on our community for those that may not be familiar with it. We've been in the NFIP since 1991, and there's about 1,000 policies in effect in the county. There's about 2,000 parcels that have structures on them in the floodplain. So obviously there's a lot more policies that we could have. And we have about 50% of them covering structures in the floodplain. The others are preferred risks, so it's about 50-50 for us. We're fortunate in some regard. We only have like 35 repetitive loss properties in the county. 4 of those have been mitigated, and we only have 1 severe repetitive loss, and that has been mitigated. All right, so just a brief overview of the community rating system. It was developed in 1990 to provide incentives for communities to go beyond the minimum requirements of the program. We actually rejoined in 1992. The incentive is for premium is to have discounts for policyholders for communities that participate. And the participation, of course, is voluntary. And there's 19 different activities that communities can earn points in, and they're kind of summarized or gathered into 4 categories: public information, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction, and flood warning and response. So activities that you do in these categories earn your credit points, and then you can see on the table there, the more points, every 500 points you earn puts you up into another classification. All right, let's see here. So again, we've been in the program since 1992. We entered as a class 9, which only requires 500 points. And communities are reviewed once every 5 years to determine the classification in the CRS program, and then, of course, their respective premium discounts. Early on, our classifications, we started as a 9, and I think for probably the first 1 or 2 cycles, we kind of just maintained at a 9. Then we, started to get serious about wanting to, provide more discounts for our citizens, and so, we started getting more of the organization involved in the in this CRS program. And it's one of those things where we were doing a lot of things, a lot of credible activities, but we just weren't really organized or documenting those things. So, so we definitely made it more of a team effort, and we started to, to move up. And so we were at a class 7 before we went into our most recent cycle visit. Okay. So our cycle visit, we actually started the process in August of 2018. And it wasn't finished until, and we weren't effective until October of 2020. So it was a little over a 2-year process for us. So we originally went into it. Our goal was to, to move up a class, up to class 6. That would give us a 20% discount. And so we were, we just kind of looked at the, all the activities that get points are located on the right side of this slide. And so, as you can see, not all of the activities are equal in terms of credit points. Some are worth 1,000. Some of those in the 400 series mapping regulation are worth, actually a couple thousand points. Whereas other activities, you would gain potentially less than 100 points. So we started out concentrating on the higher point value activities first, and then as time permitted, went after points in almost every category. So one thing we noticed in looking at this table was that, and looking at our previous rating, is we had never gotten any points for open space preservation. Not that we didn't, we just didn't go after those points. And I think early on that was an activity that wasn't very, didn't have a lot of points, but excuse me, over the years, it became much more valuable in terms of points. And I think that was a reflection of people, well, FEMA and ISO realizing that, preserving your floodplain, keeping things out of it, and keeping it in natural condition was a very, very effective approach. So, anyway, so following that approach, we ended up that we actually had enough, we earned enough points to, we ended up with a class 5 rating, but we actually had enough points to get to class 4, but we didn't have all the prerequisites that we needed for class 4. And that's partially because I guess we had no idea we would get to that level. That's, but I'm not sure we would have been able to get the necessary prerequisites anyway. And just if you're not familiar with prerequisites, there's like 6 prerequisites to get into the system to be a class 9 community. And there's like to be a class 8, you have to meet all those criteria, plus now there's a new one to be that you have to have 1 foot of freeboard for residential structures that are located in the floodplain. Class 6, you have to meet all those other criteria as well as prerequisites, as well as you got to have a building code efficiency grading of 5, 5/5. And we had all those things met, but when you get to class 4, there's quite a few more that have been added. And the one that was that we really did not have any ability to get points on was preparing watershed master plans that address the hydrology and the storm, the storm flow runoff. We have watershed management plans, but they're more geared towards identifying areas to conserve and protect in your watershed, and restoration of stream systems, retrofits of stormwater facilities. So that was, we just didn't have the those type of studies that were done. I've noticed in the most recent revisions that ISO has just sent out regarding the CRS coordinators manual. It looks like they're changing how they look at watershed master plans, and it looks like they might be giving credit for the type of watershed management plans that we have, where we're again more interested in, or they're more focused on, identifying natural areas, conserving those, protecting those. So that might be something for us to look to in the future. But as you look at the ratings, we and also this resulted in $100,000 savings to our citizens. It's a 25% reduction in their premiums. As you can see, most of the points we earned were in 420, which is open space preservation. Without, just kind of looking at it, without this category, we would have still been a class 7. Our next highest category was 430, higher regulatory standards. And I'm going to go into a little more detail how we got the points in these areas. But we ended up getting points in almost all the categories. And that was one thing I would encourage people to do, is just, try to see what, you know, to not write off anything. And if you're really trying to maximize your program, just look for all the points that you can get in the manual. And one thing for our community, the mapping and regulations category has a community growth factor associated with it. The faster growing communities have their points in this category increased by a percentage. You know, so the faster growing communities will have, you know, I think it's more important to, I think ISO is trying to help demonstrate that managing new development to minimize future damage is, you know, is really important to the program. So for us, you know, it's a 14% increase for those in that category. Our growth has slowed down some. The previous cycle visit, our growth adjustment factor was 0.34, was 34%. So we've come down some, which is good. But we've grown since the program was adopted in 1990. We've more than doubled in population over those 30 years. So it was important to, you know, get out in front of that issue, the whole floodplain issue. All right, so open space preservation was where we got the majority of our points, or the largest amount of points. And we're fortunate that our community has been protecting floodplains by various policies and regulations over the years, such as Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, which requires 100-foot buffers around all perennial streams. Of course, our floodplain ordinance protects development and prohibits development in the floodplain. There's provisions in our subdivision ordinance and other environmental policies as such that just helped us preserve the buffer that we had, the floodplains that we had. Another thing that we had that was kind of unique for James City County was that our stormwater management program, we did not follow the Chesapeake Bay program template for that. We had our own program where we actually gave compliance credit for preserving natural open space in easements that are dedicated to the county. So that's kind of similar to where the state is now, but so doing that for 30 years, we had like 1,600 acres that were protected largely by these open space dedications over the years. So all the various protection policies, ordinance requirements were compiled and presented in a document as part of our submission for this item, for this activity. And this was done, this research was actually done primarily by Mary Carson, and just went through all the policies that we have: our floodplain ordinance, Chesapeake Bay program, our wetlands ordinance, subdivision ordinance. We have planning documents like our cluster ordinance, purchase of development rights, and then we have like a greenway master plan, parks and recreation plan. So anything of those policies and ordinances that preserved open space, we included that in the document as a presentation for this program. And then the product that was actually developed was a GIS-based map and a database that gave a parcel by parcel presentation of the protected properties. And there's on the right side of the screen, you'll see an example of that, where it gives the parcel ID, the owner, the size of it, and how it's the credits that it gets under the CRS program, and so just everything that they would need to document property, how big it is, how it's protected. So the end result was that we were able to demonstrate that 85% of our flood and our special flood hazard area is protected, or excuse me, protected, preserved, whatever it is, open space. And 70% of that is protected as resource protection area. And again, I want to just point out that we received a very invaluable assistance from Mary Carson. I know she's done this for a couple of other communities as well, but so our floodplain is about 10,000 acres, and so there's about 7,000 of that is protected, that we took credit for. Is actually more than that, but we discounted the credit that we got requested as RPA open space because some of it was already impacted. About 6% was already impacted. We went conservative and said, essentially said 10% is not protected. This was one that there was a lot of discussion about and pushback about it. Pushback. There was just a lot of debate, I guess, with FEMA and ISO as to whether or not to credit this, because there is an exception process in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and ordinance, local ordinances. So we had to go back through 2 years of our exceptions that have been granted in the resource protection area to kind of demonstrate to them that we are really protecting the resource protection area to the extent that, that we could demonstrate that we qualified to get this credit. And, all the modifications were minor, and all but two were on, only two were, and all but two were on pre-platted lots, which essentially were, kind of grandfathered. They more or less, we had to grant an exception or we would essentially have to take the lot. So this is kind of the website home screen for the GIS system that was developed, and on the right side there you can see the different types of open space and different areas that are protected, and then below you can see again the kind of a summary of what you would find when you if you clicked on the parcel involved. Let's see. All right, for higher regulatory standards, we have 2 feet of freeboard above the base flood elevation for new and substantial improvement construction in the floodplain. We have adopted coastal A zone construction standards. So anything built in construction A zone would have to meet the B zone building requirements. We got credit for regulatory administration. We get credit for how many CFMs that we have on staff. We can also take credit for training that the staff gets. We receive credit for local drainage requirements. All of our individual lots require to have a site plan to demonstrate that the drainage will not affect, the individual lot or adjacent properties. We had a building code enforcement rating of 2/2, which is, we got points for that, and we also have the adoption of full international building code. All right, other areas that we got credit for was 510 for our floodplain management plan, and that's actually contained in the Hampton Roads Hazard Mitigation Plan, which ISO has, FEMA have determined is worth 300 points to any community that has participated in that within Hampton Roads. Got some credit under 610 flood warning and response for our threat recognition and notification procedures. For instance, we have reverse 911, we have a JCC alert system. We're also a storm ready community. Let's see, we got credit for outreach projects. We have targeted outreach projects, such as we do an annual mailing to all the properties in the floodplain. We've also gone out and door hangers in certain areas. And then we also had some general outreach that we did, just presentations that are done by us or emergency managers.
Yeah.
Um,
Hold on, I'll try to find. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Daryl.
all right. We got credit for flood data maintenance. We have floodplain data is available on our GIS system to all the citizens. Our maps show the 100-year and 500-year boundaries, the coastal high hazard areas, the wetlands, RPA, buffers, the limit of moderate wave action. And then we got credit also in stormwater management for enforcing our regulations regarding stormwater management. We have erosion control and water quality. And that's, again, something that everybody in Virginia would be able to receive credit for. So basically, kind of summarize, it takes a team to be successful. We have a lot of different sections of the county that are involved in this. Our general services department, stormwater, which is where I'm in, community development, as our zoning and building safety and permits. They're the ones that do the day-to-day review of plans and for compliance with the floodplain requirements. Information resource management, they did all the GIS work that we had involved. Emergency management, does the handles all the emergency notifications. They do a lot of presentations. Our housing office is where we have staff that works with citizens to get grants to either to mitigate damages on the property, whether that's elevation or improved drainage, things like that. Of course, support from elected officials to pass those higher regulatory standards. And again, did I mention that we received valuable report from valuable assistance from Mary Carson? So, finally, this is kind of our the end here of the summary. Our cycle visit started again August of 2018. It did not finish until October of 2020. That was not that's not the typical length of time that's involved with this. We had our initial visit and things went along well. We were doing follow-up responses, and then it was just silence for a long period of time. We finally had to have another reviewer assigned to the program, to our review, to finish it out. So that was, the things just took longer than typical for us. And that RPA issue also lengthened out our time. There's a lot of debate again internally with FEMA and ISO about what and how much to credit us for that. One thing that I didn't understand necessarily, but you decide if you want to maintain or improve your rating. One of the first questions I think that our initial reviewer asked us was, did we want to just maintain our rating or did we want to improve? And so not quite sure how that impacted the reviewer, but I think maybe they just then would help us try to search for more points. So anyway, if you're looking to improve your rating, they are there to help you, dig for all the points that you can get, in my experience. One thing is just to be organized. I prepared, the way I approached it, I prepared a cover memo for each activity and then went through and even projected the points that I felt we would would get, and they seem to, they seem to appreciate that. It seemed to help them as they were looking through it. And it also helped a lot when it changed hands from one reviewer to another. One thing we did as a community, we developed a SharePoint site where we put all our documentation online that is accessible to, from Cog Hill and our buildings, building safety and permits, Krista Parrish, who's in our, in our, the zoning office, GIS people could access it. So it was just a great place whenever, and even now, whenever something comes up that you want to use for the next cycle visit or for the annual review, you can just put it in there, and then everybody can see it, and it just helps you stay organized. Again, our approach was just to start with the smaller activities. Start with the activities that get the most points, but then go after just anywhere you think you can find points. It's that thing where you just kind of just throw it out there and see what sticks, sort of approach. Let's see. One thing I found that, there are some areas that I felt, maybe we didn't agree with the credit award, that it was, not sufficient. And, I think you need to feel free to challenge the results that you get and, provide additional documentation, as necessary. And, one thing, the main thing for us anyway, is the whole open space preservation issue. That's where we got a whole lot of points for the RPA, areas that are preserved or protected through the resource protection area. So we're really concerned about these recent changes to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act that I've heard may cause problems for the state going forward with open space credits. So, what I would hope is that each community would be judged on its own merits as to how they perform in this area, and not just kind of do a broad brush approach to all communities just because of a statewide act. And just be prepared to provide additional documentation. It seems like it was good, and it worked out good in the end, but it is a lot of work to keep up with all the requests for additional documentation. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
So one question, Daryl, that someone has just sent me, could they look at the score sheet again? So if you could advance back. Is that the one?
Yeah, is that the one they wanted?
I think so. I'm going to wait and see if she.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Liz Shesley with Timmons. I was curious in looking at the score sheet again to specifically see how many points you got in activity 540 for drainage system maintenance. I was assisting Chesapeake with their last round of this, and they had not gone after 540 before, but you would think, as an MS4 locality, that you should be able to get some credit out of drainage system maintenance. And we ended up submitting a lot of documentation and getting 0 credit out of it. So I was curious to see your score, and maybe if you could elaborate on the level of effort, for putting together documentation for that task, and any I guess bumps in the road or issues you see with getting more credit out of that, because I see you guys didn't get much either, and I would guess you do a good amount of system maintenance.
Well, we're a county, so we don't have a large. We basically have only the systems that on properties that we own. VDOT maintains all the public roads, and private roads are maintained, and systems are maintained by those communities, those gated communities. What we and I don't know that I have. Let's see. What we, well, one thing that we do here that is that we actually have a grant program where we partner with homeowner associations and provide up to 50% cost share for them to help them maintain their drainage system. So we kind of partner with them. We give advice. We help pay for inspections of their systems and then improvements to their systems. So that, I don't know that I have the score sheet in front of me to see exactly how they gave us those points, but that's one thing we do. We also have, illicit discharge ordinance, which prohibits, dumping things in the stream, and then maintaining our own stormwater management facilities. So those are the three things basically that we submitted on. So
Thanks, Daryl.
So
And just, I had not thought specifically about the difference between, a city with them operating their roads and you guys as a county not doing that. So I guess that there is
right,
a big, difference there in the amount of system that you actually maintain. Thank you.
right.
This is Emily with ISO. If I can jump in a little bit here. One of the complexities with 540 is that there are a lot of prerequisites for various elements of that activity. So the channel debris maintenance is something that you can do on your own, and the problem site maintenance is something that can be submitted on its own. But all the other elements within 540 have prerequisites. So looking at James City County, it looks like you were credited for the storage basin maintenance submittal because that prerequisite is PUB, which is part of your stormwater management elements. But because, like you said, because of what you're able to inspect annually, it's impact adjusted over your entire system. So you're able to inspect about 13% of your entire storage basin maintenance inventory. And so that's how those points got impacted. I will say usually the problem site management, problem site maintenance, that element is usually the one that I've been seeing. I'm a newer specialist, so I've only had about 1 year of processing communities through the process under my belt, and not all of them have submitted for this element. So I'm still learning as I go, but the problem site maintenance has a maximum of 50 points, and that's where I see most communities submitting for that main reason of various prerequisites not being met and not being able to maintain a majority of their inventory, if that helps.
It does. Thank you. I'm actually going back through everything that was submitted now and trying to go back through that detail of the prerequisites to see where the gaps are so that the city can, have a stronger submission for an annual review.
Yeah, and anytime, I know that we talked a lot about the 5-year cycle visit. If you guys are going through and proactively adding activities and working in the manual and making sure you're doing the documentation and all that kind of stuff, you can submit for a modification. You don't have to wait for your 5-year cycle visit. So if you have enough points to get up to that next class level, including any various prerequisites, which because of this year would be making sure your ordinance has that 1 foot of freeboard for all residential structures, including mechanical and equipment piece in it, because it's that new class 8 prerequisite. But anytime you have that, like say you're only 100 points away from your next class level, if you add activities that would get you up to that, feel free to contact me and we can have a discussion and look at things. Because a modification, if it's just a 1 class improvement, you're just submitting the pieces that you're missing. You're verifying that you're still doing all the other pieces, but the documentation we need for a modification is the increase of points. If you're doing a 2-class modification, then we do a whole cycle visit. That triggers a whole evaluation. But to go back to the 540, my eyes couldn't find it on my list on my wall over here earlier, but so the channel debris removal can be submitted on its own. Problem site maintenance can be submitted on its own. Capital improvement program, you also need to be getting credit in the problem site maintenance element. And then stream dumping regulations, to get that credit, you need to be receiving credit in the channel debris removal element. So storage basin maintenance, that's the one that has a prerequisite in a different activity. So that one is the PUB prerequisite that you guys did have this time around. So there's definitely a lot of understanding all those pieces, but if you have questions, let me know, because I've got a cheat sheet on my wall that shows me, and I've got it all highlighted as to which ones have prerequisites and which ones have tech reviews. And so definitely let me know if you have questions about that kind of stuff. So hopefully that helps with some of those more elusive. Yeah, you guys, the county growth adjustment factor, I haven't, this is my first time getting into the Virginia communities. So I haven't really looked too much. Those get reevaluated annually, and they're on the county level rather than on the community level. So that's one thing. I would encourage you not to lean too heavily on those points, because they do change every year and you don't know what your growth adjustment factor is going to be the next time around. And so when you're looking at your points, I would say don't mentally add those in. If you're looking for your points, just work on your straight activities and the elements in the activities. Like Daryl said, we've got 19 activities, but there's close to 100 elements within those activities. So there is a lot. I encourage you to read the new addendum to the 2017 manual, because there are some new elements that got added in. Quite a bit got added into activity 370. They are prerequisites that build on each other in 370, but the first one is just doing a flood insurance assessment of how much of your special flood hazard area buildings are covered by insurance. And there are some numbers that I can pull pretty darn easily to send you so that you can do the majority of that assessment. So that's kind of the gateway element for that activity, flood insurance assessment. Sorry, I didn't expect to be talking so much today. Hopefully that's helping.
That's super helpful, Emily. There's another question in the chat from Jenny Sneed. Hey, Jenny. She says, Daryl, can you discuss about 630 and why you didn't see credit for the state dam safety program?
Well, I wish I could. I really don't understand why we didn't get credit for that either.
So I bet Kristen will know this and provide a better answer, but it's my understanding that in the 2017 manual, our dam safety program is no longer eligible for those points. That's what I understand, and that's the extent of it. So Kristen, do you have any more insight on that?
Not really. I kind of don't remember. I sort of put it out of my head when I left a couple months ago. But I know, like, originally the dam safety was considered like a statewide uniform credit, and then it was never resubmitted. I think it could still get credit. It's just that we're all going to have to go through the steps and actually like work to get it, because none of it was submitted again, like on the state level for everybody to get. But I was thinking, and I could be wrong, and maybe Emily, you can like chime in if I am, but I was thinking there was some kind of prereq or something that got added to 600 that is what impacted those points for different people.
Yeah, so like you said, 630 used to be, the state dam safety credit used to be a uniform credit. Now we're actually checking to make sure that there is a high hazard dam in the jurisdiction, or that the inundation area of that dam impacts the jurisdiction that's being cycled. So there's now instead of just you automatically get it, whatever your state score is. And I'm looking right now, it looks like based on the latest list I have, Virginia gets 15 points for SDS risk communication public awareness and 15 points for SDS emergency action planning. It doesn't look like we have points in the condition assessment column. So it looks like it was it's a potential up to 45 points maximum for SDS. It looks like Virginia is rating at 30 points for that right now. But in order to get those, we would need a identified all of the high hazard dams in the jurisdiction. We would need the map of the inundation map for those dams and the description of the threat. And so that, I mean, that's just to verify that your community actually is benefiting from that state program. Whereas in the past, it was a blanket credit given to every community.
Mm-hmm. And that's consistent with what Tom has just noted in the chat from Accomack.
Yeah, so you can actually get the dam safety data from DCR. They have some of the inundation zones mapped in GIS, not all of them. So that is one thing that kind of limits all of us getting credit, is that they're in the process of digitizing those inundation maps. And then as new dams come in, they're required to do it digitally. But you can request all that data from James Martin. Like he sent me, I had him just run an analysis for Henrico and to pull all of the dams that are in the county and then all of the inundation zones that are in the county or intersect with the county, because we have some like in Hanover County that impact us. And he'll send it to you. I mean, he sent it to me like same day. So you can, I'll put his email in the chat, but you can just request it from him. And then a lot of the PDCs have requested it like on a regional level, so you can get that data too.
That was one thing that's another reason why I didn't understand why we didn't get credit, because we did submit high hazard dam inundation zones with our application, but again, we didn't get any credit for it. We didn't fight it a whole lot, but anyway, that was one I still don't understand why we didn't get anything there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Were most of the points you were able to earn, were they harvesting things that y'all already did, or did y'all specifically implement new regulations with the intent of earning additional credits? And one of the things I was specifically thinking was, as it relates to development within the special flood hazard area, did that just happen as a result of existing regulations and your regulations didn't allow much, or was there a conscious effort to change development standards to prohibit it?
Well, I think it's a combination. I mean, I think we, the higher standards, certainly offer higher protection to the citizens. So it's not like it was solely driven by getting credit. I think they were just the right things to do to help protect the community from flooding impacts. And so, but I think some of the things, like for instance, the coastal A zone standards, the B zone construction standards in the coastal A, I think that was, we got the idea, or from the program, that if we did this, it would offer more protection for the give us more points, but still it also offers more protection for the citizens. So it's kind of a combination. I don't know that I could separate it out, but it's part of the decision, but it's certainly not driving it doesn't necessarily drive our decisions, just going after points to just get points, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it kind of does. Were the points a result of a fixed amount as it relates to having the regulation, or was it based on an area that was preserved, you know, not developing the special flood hazard area?
Yeah, let me try to tackle that one first, please. The higher regulations scored in Activity 430, a lot of those are impact adjusted based on the acreage where they're being implemented. One of the things that you'll kind of see is the more area you have right in your open space, preserved open space, the less impact your higher regulations will get credited because they're being implemented over a smaller percentage of your SFHA. If you choose to also use those higher regulations in your 500-year zone, then please let us know that, because we'll do the impact adjustment off of a different total acreage. But the first element in 430 is development limitations. Points for prohibiting fill, buildings, and or storage of materials in the SFHA. If your ordinance prohibits all three of those, then that acreage gets counted as preserved open space. Now, if they have exceptions allowed, then it becomes a different kind of conversation. But something that might be useful, because you were talking about what your ordinance, what higher standards you have versus were they specifically adjusted language for credit. If you're planning on doing an ordinance review, I would encourage looking in the manual and seeing if you have something that the intent is there, but maybe the wording doesn't quite match what we credit. We do offer courtesy reviews of ordinances. So if before you adopt it, you want to submit it, let me know, and we can do a courtesy review and let you know, well, this looks like you're trying to protect this and this is the intent of it, but this particular wording means that it's not fully creditable. If you're able to change the wording to XYZ, then we'd be able to credit it more. And so we do offer those courtesy reviews. The ordinance that is in effect on the date of the cycle visit, or at this point, because of COVID, the cycle visit phone call. That is the ordinance that we're tied to during our review. So this past year, I had a lot of communities that had almost wordings, almost fully creditable wordings. In some cases, we weren't able to give any credit. In some cases, we were able to give partial credit. But they now have a whole list of ordinance changes that they want to submit to their governing body so that they can get that in place for the next time around. And if they were closer to the next cycle visit or the next class level, then they were going to push for that sooner and then submit for a modification with the only piece changing is their ordinance. So yes, the 430 elements are definitely impact adjusted based on the acreage that they are enforced in. I think that was the original question, and I went on a bunch of tangents, but
Yes, that was definitely the question, and it was a good answer.
thank you. I have some communities that they're open, they have some open space, but because they're a full county and they have a couple hundred acres of open space, but it's all spread out and piecemeal, and it's very hard for them to do the documentation for it. When it got impact adjusted over their 100,000 acres of SFHA, they were going to get maybe 3 points of credit for it. So they decided, all right, well, we're not going to try and maintain all of this documentation for our impact adjusted 423 points. We will get full credit for all of our 430 elements and make sure that we have a strong enforceable ordinance. So it's kind of a balancing act. You guys have a really great resource in Mary Carson for your 420, and with Virginia having so many great protection pathways. So I'm excited to see coming up on my Virginia visits this year. I have started reaching out to some of you guys, and I'll reach out to the rest in the next week or two to get those ordinances so I can check them for that new Class 8 freeboard requirement. I think the state didn't used to have the mechanical electrical requirement up to the 1 foot. So that is the piece that's getting updated. Mary Carson, you're on mute.
Yeah, and I have an update on that specifically in like a couple slides, so that'll be good.
Errol, this is Kristen. I have a quick question for you. You said you made a SharePoint site. We are also in the process of making a SharePoint site for like starting our whole process of pulling together our application and stuff. So I was wondering if you would be willing to have like another Zoom call or something where you could just show me your screen and let me see what your SharePoint site looks like. Because I've been looking at like what a community in Florida did and kind of like comparing different things, but I'm just curious how you set yours up and like how well it worked.
Okay. Yeah, I can send you I can send you a screenshot of it, and then you can see if it gives you enough information, or you follow up with a call.
Okay, yeah, that works. If you want to send me a screenshot.
It worked well. We, it has a lot of information. We have separated out, what we've done for this last cycle visit, and then now we started a whole new section for the next cycle visit. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to make that screenshot available to everybody, I can post it on the website under this section.
Okay.
That'd be awesome.
All right. And unfortunately, are there any other questions? I have to step out, but
Any other? I don't think so. No other questions in the chat.
Okay.
Daryl, thank you
All right.
so much. This was incredibly helpful.
All right. Well, glad I could help out. All right, I'll stop sharing
then. Okay. There's a question in the chat. Thanks, Daryl. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question in the chat from Jenny. Could Emily share her cheat sheet that she mentioned? I think she's talking about something that is up on her wall.
I will ask. It's an internal for specialists kind of piece, so I will ask before I distribute that. But if I'm not allowed to send the whole thing, I can ask if I can do kind of a rundown of that and make a shareable version of it. I will make a note about that.
Yeah. We've asked for something similar in the past, and we've been given the X. So it would be cool if you get a different answer.
I will ask. The worst they can do is say no, in which case I can kind of talk through it and you guys can make notes. But the other thing that I want to say about I know I didn't get it before he left, but the other piece about improving classes is making sure that all of those extra activities are annually repeatable, and that you're able, and that SharePoint site sounds like a great way to keep it organized, but also that will make it easier for you guys to make sure that you're able to do your annual recertification. Like, am I doing this on the required timeline and those kinds of pieces, because there are definitely plenty of those little criteria that can easily slip through the website, making sure that you check every month that the links are all still working. You don't have to get them. So a lot of those I've seen people say, we're checking the links quarterly. I'm like, make yourself a calendar reminder. Those have to be checked monthly. And if that's just you going to your website and clicking on each link, make sure it still works, great. That's all it needs to be. But those little pieces that are credit criteria that can sometimes disappear or not quite get caught, those are the pieces to make those reminders. So that organization and cross communication amongst departments is amazing. Great job, you guys.
Yep, James City County is pretty much just crushing it. Okay, so we're going to keep rolling. I just wanted to take a really quick second and note that there are 2 FEMA representatives on this call today, which is great. We have Rich Saboto from FEMA, as well as Charlie Baker. Charlie is the FEMA Region 3 Floodplain Specialist in Building Science, POC, and Rich Saboto is the Region 3 insurance specialist and CRS coordinator. So those folks are on, and if you have questions for them, I don't know if they're definitely going to be available for a little bit, but you can always include your questions in the chat, or you can chat them directly. Thanks, FEMA, for being a part of our meetings per usual.
Thanks, Mary Carson. Yeah, this is Rich, and yes, I'll be on until the end of this presentation, God willing. Long story short, I spent a good part of yesterday in a workshop on the topic of risk rating 2.0. And I think that fairly certain we will be able to share information with that in the not too distant future. And when I've got that green light, I'd love to come back in and do a presentation for all of you folks here. Thanks.
That would be great. We would love to have a presentation on risk rating 2.0, specifically because we know the CRS program is going to change in a big way from what I've been hearing. So we are eagerly anticipating more information about that.
Yes, everything is going to change in a big way. And for those of you who don't know much about the National Flood Insurance Program, consider yourself lucky, because you won't have to unlearn everything you know. More to follow.
And
Charlie,
Rich,
you have anything? Sorry.
Nothing to add on my end, just glad to be here.
All right. I'm sorry, Mary Carson.
No, that's okay. I just was going to note that risk rating 2.0 will be of specific interest to our coastal communities because the new rating will have what I've been calling a coastal surcharge. And so there will be an additional, there will be a, I don't know if it'll be additional money necessarily when everything shakes out, but the rate will be based on proximity to water, which is new for the coastal.
Yes, absolutely correct.
So yay. Fun stuff coming soon.
Yes, it will be. It will be.
Okay, so if anybody has questions, please use the chat for our FEMA friends.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So just wanted to, I'm going to switch around just a second. The CRS manual, as Emily, I think it was Emily mentioned, there is a new addendum to the 2017 manual. If you're not getting notifications about things like this from the NFIP CRS team, please go to crsresources.org and sign up to receive those notifications. You definitely want to be sure you're getting that NFIP CRS newsletter that comes out. That's where a lot of information is included about the CRS program, and then big updates like this. So when this PowerPoint is posted on our website, you can follow the link to the addendum here, or you can just go to the crsresources.org website and click on the manual tab, and it will take you over and you'll be able to view the addendum. I have not done a full review of this. I will do that, and we will have I'll have like a cheat sheet or some sort of reference document for y'all that outlines, with very limited language and words, what the addendum actually does. So that will be coming for y'all at some point.
I just want to point out that on the crsresources.org webpage, on the 100 series tab at the bottom, all of the past newsletters are there for download. And at the bottom of it is that spot where you add your email address to sign up for future receiving of them. But if you misplace it in your email, or you didn't get it in your email, you can always go to that page. They're all there to download the past newsletters.
Awesome. Yes. And I just put a link in it didn't hyperlink. I don't know why, probably because I didn't do an HTTP or whatever. So that's just copy and paste that in your browser and the 100 tab. Awesome, Emily. Thank you. Okay. All right. So that's good housekeeping. Now, I wanted to turn it over to Madison Teeter, Wetlands Watch staff, who is going to talk about the draft letter related to the CRS response to the CBPA draft regulations that account for climate change. And, you know, Madison can provide an overview, but we're concerned with the potential for fill to be permitted in the RPA for the purpose of creating like an adaptation measure, and that's not defined. And essentially it's like BMPs to help people protect their property from erosion and sea level rise encroachment. And it creates a donut hole in the RPA strength potentially. And so that's, you know, very brief overview of what we're talking about. So I'm going to hand it over to Madison.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen real quick. I wanted to go over some things first before I got to the letter. You guys should be able to see this VA policy updates website. Let me know if you don't see it otherwise, but MC will be sharing a link to this in the chat. I just wanted to talk about this real quickly first because Wetlands Watch staff is working really hard to keep everyone updated on all things legislation, including the changes to the CBPA. So if you don't really know what we're talking about right now, or if you're a little bit behind on what the legislation says or what the draft regulations talk about, you can find all of this on our website. There's an overview tab where you can read the original legislation. You can read the draft regulations. You can read all about all the stakeholder responses to those regulations that got sent out, and as well as these public outreach efforts. So one notable thing is that tomorrow DEQ is hosting a public informational meeting on the regulations. So if you go to this website, you can look at the information about that meeting and also register for it. So that might be something that you're interested in doing for tomorrow. We keep this website up to date as things come out. So when the comment period for the regulations go live, which they go live next Monday on February 1st, we'll include that link here. So if you're interested in submitting your own comments, that link will be here. If you want some email blasts get sent out to you as we learn more information, we also have the Commonwealth Resilience Brief on our website that you can subscribe to. It's just an email newsletter that we use primarily to update everyone on all things resilience. So all of the legislation that's going through the Virginia legislation period right now, you'll also get sent all of those updates as well. So to the main thing, the draft comment letter, I just wanted to let you all know that MC updated the website. So if you go to the work group work products on the Coastal VA CRS website, the draft comment letter is right here for you to view for later on past this meeting.
And I just put the link in the chat, sorry.
Oh, and MC also put the link in the chat. So when you click on that, it'll pull up our draft letter that MC and I worked on. Just a basic overview, kind of like what MC said of the letter. It just talks about what the CRS Coastal Workgroup is. We talk about the CBPA and how it is used within the CRS program for the communities. Talk about what the CRS program is at a baseline, but the really big thing that we talk about here, like MC said, is just allowing more fill in the RPA would jeopardize the future credits that communities are, the future and present credits that communities are getting within the CRS program. So we just point that out here in bold at the bottom of the first page of the letter. One of the questions that we had that, and we are totally open to more edits for you all to email myself and Mary Carson of any of edits or suggestions that you want to add after you look over this on the website. One question that we had up front was at this paragraph that we have right here, we state that several communities in Virginia are earning credits from prohibiting development and filling inside these RPA areas. We didn't know if you all thought if it would be beneficial to list out those communities verbatim within the letter itself, or if you have any other upfront thoughts. If you recall from our last meeting in November, we just said that this would be a shorter letter just to flat out bring to the attention that this would potentially jeopardize some of the points for communities that are participating in the CRS program. So this isn't anything super lengthy. It doesn't go into the specific concerns that we've talked about with some of you all in the past. Wetlands Watch is planning on putting out a lengthier letter that we're more than happy to discuss with you all at a later date, but this is just that very basic overview of, hey, we're concerned that the regulations potentially will jeopardize some of the points. So this is just a very basic overview letter. So nothing too in-depth, but yeah. So are there any initial thoughts on this, I guess? And then are there any initial thoughts on listing out the communities verbatim that do already get points for this?
I have a question, and I'm not really sure I understand the proposed change, but we have two situations. One where people are developing new, we're 100% protective of the RPA area without any problem. But we have areas that are redeveloped and the parcels are kind of grandfathered, and you can't develop without impacting the RPA, and they have certain rights to utilize existing parcels. And to the extent that it makes it more resilient, I think fill has been allowed in those situations. So is there a distinction between people in that category versus new development where you're protecting the RPA?
No distinction, same. And we're not talking about fill that's like permitted for, wetlands restoration or already permissible activities like a living shoreline. Obviously, you would use a little bit of fill to grade and to plant. Those types of activities are already allowed and would not jeopardize CRS credits. This is a situation where the goal of this legislation, to be frank, is to deal with the problem of people's properties, their structures becoming at risk of either like going completely underwater or of being inundated frequently enough that they would need to move. This is to help protect private property. And that's where the drafters of the legislation are coming from. And everyone understands that the protection of property is very important. It's just the manner in which people go about providing protections that's unknown. And we just want to be sure that the elements of the water quality statute, which the CBPA is, are continued and not in jeopardy. And it just so happens that those water quality protections have a relationship with the CRS program because communities are eligible to receive credit for the areas in the RPAs. But if we allow, fill that is more than what's permitted, like for restoration purposes, then it could be a problem for the communities that are earning the points. Does that make sense, Jay? I don't know if I explained that well.
Yeah, I think it does. I was trying to process it, and we've had a board that was fairly aggressive. And in some cases, I think the attorneys have said, well, you can't tell a guy he can't use his property if the parcel is so small and and we have some that the parcels are entirely in the RPA.
Yeah.
They weren't created recently. And if you say, well, we have this new regulation, you can't fill, and obviously you can't.
Yeah. So this is not okay. So what you're talking about is by right development. And that's every community that has RPAs deals with that. So if you say no, and there's no other way for the structures to be built, then it could constitute a takings, which is why the attorneys would be having that reaction. What we're talking about is not related to the building of structures like homes. What we're talking about is the building of adaptive practices, and we don't know what those are, but basically like activities that happen along the shoreline that protect properties. So it's like a flood wall plus, you know, maybe some plantings or something, a best management practice, like some sort of stormwater feature that is supposed to help reduce flooding, but it includes a ton of fill to elongate and to expand someone's shoreline to a degree that it adds land to their property. So they are buying some time before the water gets to their house. That's kind of the idea behind this proposed amendment to the regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But that's good. I mean, good questions. It's complicated. Brickenbrough from Accomack has asked how many communities are receiving credit for the RPA. And, you know, I'm just like working out a list of the communities that I know of. And I'll send that around. But if you are and you're on the call, then please indicate as much. But I think it's, you know, Stafford County, Ashland, James City County. I think that a Northern Virginia community may have just submitted recently. Gloucester, of course, I'm working with them right now to try to get their submission underway. So
I think it would be important though, like, I mean, we could list each individual community, but I think the plan is that those of us that are not getting credit are potentially all going to try to get credit for it. So like, I mean, we're not in the program yet, but I'm getting ready to work on having our people map hours so we can see if we would get credit or not. So a lot of, like, not all of us are getting it because this was relatively new, you know, when we got through and got it all approved. But now that it's been approved, I feel like all of us are seeking this credit because it's, you know, a huge chunk potentially for each of us.
Yeah, and Tom has clarified in the chat, yes, we get that. It would be to list them because there's the potential that it would span the urban and rural divide. And yes, it would, based on what we know about the communities getting credit. So we could note that the communities are varied and represent different parts of the state, which is also true.
I think we should also point out what Kristen said. So there's a lot of communities going after it as well. Like, it's not just communities who currently have it, but a lot of future communities that they're going to depend upon those points for their rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could pull like what we have 27 CRS communities now, and all of them but 4 are in the Chesapeake Bay area. So, I mean, not all of them are getting credit, but potentially all of us could get credit. And then you've got, actually, that's not true. Now we have 28 CRS communities. I forgot Franklin's added. So 24 of our 28 have potential to get RPA credit. And then you've got like us that's trying to join. Trying to think of who the other communities are that are in the process. I think they're out west. Oh yeah, Newport News. So that would be 2 more. I think the others, it's like Warren County and Stanton. So they wouldn't be in. I can't remember if there's anybody else that's in the process of joining. But I mean, that's the majority of our CRS communities could get it. So
yeah. And even in the mountains, the RPAs.
Oh, Fairfax is working to join also, the city of Fairfax. So there are 3 communities working towards joining in addition to the 24 that could get credit.
Kathy, you came off.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had our formal meeting last week and now we're in our 30 days. And I mean, we're definitely planning on, you know, credits from the CBPA regulations and the special flood hazard. So, you know, I mean, it just kind of seems like a no-brainer to most of us. So,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll do some tweaking of this language so we're capturing what the impacts could be.
Yeah, Absolutely. And like I said, the letter is still up on the website. So if there are any more thoughts or comments or suggestions to this more overview letter for all us to sign off on, just email either MC or I.
And Tom, I saw you came off mute. Did you want to add something?
Well, I was debating whether to or not. I know when we got credit in 2015 for our RPA, we were required to go ahead and remove areas that were likely to be granted exceptions because it would constitute a taking if they didn't get it. And I didn't know if maybe if a fallback position or something like that is where we can look at those areas and remove just that small portion or something. But again, that's purely as a fallback.
Yeah, I think it's good to be thinking about how we address the issue if it does come to fruition. And we can definitely have some strategy calls around that. I really am super hopeful about this. There are so many people, as I've said before, organizations that are very concerned about this issue. And, you know, it's a part of a larger conversation and a larger fight, quite frankly, to address the massive concerns with private property protection with sea level rise. So there's more to come on this.
Kirsten, I have another question real quick about your all's comments. Madison, and I apologize because I haven't actually read your letter yet, but are you talking about anything with like the floodplain requirements? Because one of the things I talked about with DEQ a while back when this was coming up was that all of these areas are going to be pretty much mapped as floodplains. So even if CBPA allows fill to be placed, all of those property owners are still going to have to do a study potentially to determine what kind of impacts they're making on the floodplain. They might have to do a LOMAR through FEMA. And the people that do the Chesapeake Bay approvals are not necessarily the floodplain person. So we could be ending up with, you know, conflicting requirements and potential compliance issues on the floodplain side. And if you read, you know, the NFIP minimums, the way it's worded for V zones is that they meet all of the AE requirements, which technically means they have to do a study to show they're not causing an impact on the Chesapeake Bay or the Atlantic Ocean, which, like, I mean, they're probably not going to be, but like they technically are supposed to do that. And headquarters even kind of like pushed back at one point and said, yes, that they would need to do that when we were talking about, you know, all the permitting requirements for minor issues and things like that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but so, I mean, that is like a serious issue, because what I'm more worried about it from that side is that, you know, whoever's doing the Chesapeake Bay approvals, they're not necessarily going to reach out to those of us doing the floodplain approvals. And then we're going to end up with development potentially happening in our floodplains that then could even get us kicked out of CRS, because, you know, not only would we lose potential points, but we're going to have, you know, these larger issues that are going to come into play. And I don't know that they're thinking about that, because I had to tell them multiple times that floodplain requirements still apply, even though it's, you know, a different program similar to the building code. You know, our rules still apply. So making sure that that's clear, because I think the CRS credits are really important, but that compliance piece that could also get us kicked out of the program is also really important.
Yeah, our current letter doesn't have anything about that. And don't feel bad about not reading it in its full yet. We just put it on the website this morning, so it's totally okay. We were expecting just to do a brief overview and then to get edits back later. But no, I don't think we don't currently have anything in the letter about that, but we can definitely include it. I think that's really important. Like I said, it's a very basic overview letter. We know that the draft regulations are very complicated, and like I said, Wetlands Watch is planning on writing an even lengthier letter about all the, like MC said, different potential donut holes that I could open and how it impact communities. But yeah, we can definitely add something in about that
okay.
as well.
Yeah, and let me know if you need any help or anything with like pulling the sections, because I can tell you where they all are.
Yeah,
So.
that'd be great. Yeah, if you want to shoot us an email, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth with you on the language before we insert it into the draft.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And I will send it a link around with those modifications to the work group as well. Okay, I think that's really helpful. And Now I'm going to launch a poll Ashley from the PDC. The CBPA regulations proposed amendments will also be discussed at the Environmental Committee next Thursday. Great. No. Oh yeah, next Thursday, the 4th, right? Not this Thursday. Wonderful. So we'll definitely need to voice our concerns about the CRS program and how they could be impacted. And Ashley, I'll be sure that I'm attending that meeting and raising that issue too. Okay, I'm going to launch a poll because in the event that we need to submit it to ASFPM for credits for your CFM, please fill this poll out. This is fast and quick. I know that you all have not read the CBPA comment letter in its full in its entirety, and that's absolutely cool. If you have during this meeting, that's great too. Just answer the poll question however you'd like. And if you haven't read it, maybe other would be good. And then for number 2, yeah, the NA, or yes, if you receive the RPA credits. I've been having a sidelined email exchange with the communities that are receiving RPA credit already. And so I'll just continue that on, but I thought I'd add a second question to this poll. So we're making ASFPM happy for our CECs. I'm going to leave the poll up for a long time, just so everybody is definitely filling it out. So there are no issues with CECs in the future. We don't like to do the CEC stuff, we dislike it as much as y'all, but it is necessary for those free credits. Okay, so thank you, Madison. And Madison was really the principal writer for the letter. So really cool to have her participation and input in this. Okay, so am I sharing my screen? I've totally lost track.
Or not currently.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay. Thank you, Madison. We talked about the addendum. I'm glad Charlie is still on the line from FEMA because I, wanted to make sure that he was seeing what I was planning on saying about the Class 8 freeboard prerequisite. It is my understanding from an email from Rebecca Quinn, who is like a consultant for NFIP and CRS extraordinaire. She noted that ISO/FEMA have confirmed that the CRS communities do not need to do anything to satisfy this part of the Class 8 requirement, that the building code language is sufficient. So this is basically means that the ordinances in a Class 8 community that has a 1 foot of freeboard would not need to modify the residential code section 322.1.6. So I hope I am stating this correctly, but this is the kind of like final opinion. And I have a link to their letter that is hyperlinked here. I'm going to include this link in the chat so you can check out this confirmation. I believe it's in an email from Molly O'Toole, who's one of the principal ISO consultants. And the email is directed to Sherry Harper, who is one of the heads at ISO. Florida was making the most noise about this because they have the most CRS communities. So that's consistent with a lot of the new prerequisites that come out for the CRS. So Kristen is on the emails, Kristen is on the emails with these people as well. So Kristen, I hope that this is consistent with.
Yeah, I think you covered it. This was kind of one of the things I started pushing back on back in the day before I left for the county. And so we finally got it cleared up. So I think, a lot of you I know are going to do an ordinance update still because just to make it clear, what you're going to do. And I think some of you actually had language that said specifically it didn't apply to imminent ordinance, so you wanted to clear that up. But I think all you should have to do to meet that prereq now is to show that section of the building code and to demonstrate that we all have to adopt it because it's the uniform statewide building code, regardless of what your ordinance says, and you should be able to get credit based on these emails.
Yep. And, you know, the best practice would definitely be to include all of the equipment. So, you know, keep that in mind too. It would definitely be preferable for flood safety that you do include the mechanicals. But if you're in a tight spot politically, then this is good news for y'all. This really doesn't, I don't know how many communities this specifically applies to. I know that Kristen, at some point you kind of knew how many communities would be impacted, but nevertheless, this is the information that we have, and we'll make this link available in all of our materials from the meeting.
Yeah, and I would recommend too that you maybe just have a conversation with your building official to make sure that they're familiar with, you know, that there is a floodplain ordinance and that they may not match, and that even though this exception is in the building code, that it doesn't mean they can just grant it kind of whenever they want. Because I think depending on where you are, you just like in the country, communities are more restrictive with that exception than others. And so they say that the language is okay because this is an exception, so it shouldn't be granted often, but you may just want to make sure that your building code staff are familiar with that, and that you know, make sure they're not issuing a bunch of them, because it may come back in the future if it's not in your ordinance specifically.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Feel free to jump in or use the chat. I'm going to close the poll soon, so if you want CECs, fill it out. Okay. All right. Back. All right, we talked about risk rating 2.0 and how the CRS program will change. I hope that Wetlands Watch will be on top of the CRS implications as soon as possible, and hopefully we'll be able to keep everybody updated as quickly as possible. And I really am glad that Rich will be willing to present to the work group as well. Okay, we're going to skip over this for future CRS workgroup meetings discussion. This is basically related to having online meetings versus in-person meetings. We're not close to in-person meetings yet, so we'll just defer this in the interest of time. Tariq does not see a poll. Okay, if you don't see a poll question, please go to More, the ellipses in your control panel. That's either at the top of your Zoom screen or at the bottom. It's ellipses, the 3 dots, ... and it says More, and then select polling or polls. I don't know what the actual title is, and a screen should pop up. I'll leave it on for 2 minutes additionally, just to make sure everybody has the opportunity to fill it out. Okay, so More, polling. It's in your Zoom control. Okay, let's do some report outs. We have about 15 minutes left. You can do your report out in the chat, or you can come off of mute and show your face or not. I'll just kind of go around and hit people. And by hit people, I mean say your names. How about Newport News, folks? We got a little update from y'all.
I'll go real quick. It would have been really nice to know about the building code thing. Well, I mean, we found it, but we had to go, you know, all around and everything. Because what happened to us was we were supposed to have our meeting in December. And then I believe because Doug was retiring, he asked if we could move to January, which put us into all these 21 requirements that we found out literally as we're getting ready for our meeting. So it was a bit of a panic. We're all good. We found all, you know, that out, but you know, it was very stressful at that moment.
I imagine that was the case. I am sorry. Yeah,
The
this
meeting
was-
went well. I think we're right on the verge of a 7, so we don't know if we'll teeter back to an 8 or not when it's all final, but we're in that frenzy, getting everything that he listed or we needed pieces to or whatever else. So we'll know soon.
That's great. I'm glad that it went well, and I hope that, fingers crossed. And did they give you a time frame for when they think you might know?
I don't know. Maybe someone else from Newport News knows because I wasn't in all of the meeting. I had another meeting. So, but
I think we have 30 days later, just past Friday. So we have 30 days to submit everything. And it's going to go through level of reviewers. And the earliest that we can be in is October of this year.
Okay, that makes sense. That's great. I hope that you can make that list. That'd be awesome. And who is doing your who is the ISO reviewer you're working with?
It is right now is Eugene Coles. He is a representative ISO in New England area. And because of Doug's retiring, Doug's work had been split out to different people. But I think to our knowledge, Emily, you can confirm this, but I think it's like after we in the CRS moving forward, Newport News is going to be under yours.
Yeah, all of Doug's 2020 open files kind of got spread out because I have about 17 I cover all of Virginia and Georgia starting this month moving forward. So yeah, I took on one of his open files and we meet on Monday, February 1st with Richmond. But everybody else kind of got spread out so that my list of 2021 Virginia communities and Georgia communities don't get overwhelmed by trying to take on those that had to be shifted, like Newport News. So yes, you guys would have been split out amongst various people for this particular cycle visit or closing out documentation from his open cycle visit. But moving forward, I'm your specialist, and so you can feel free to use me as a resource. If when your file gets finished and closed up, you want to do a modification, I'm your person, just let me know.
And because Eugene is out of New York, we've had to, a few times Jenny has had to remind him or tell him, hey, in Virginia, people usually get credit for this because of, the CBPA ordinance. And I mean, we've had some conversations that we normally would have automatically assumed that it would have known that we've had to tell him about. So hopefully we've caught all those.
So folks on the call, this will be my first year with Virginia. So assume that I don't know about the automatic stuff that Virginia does well. And as we go through, I will learn and I will be making notes about what I should be expecting. Last year was my first year as a specialist, and I processed across about 6 different states. So I'm not real set on any particular location on what they do statewide. So I'm excited to have 2 focused areas moving forward.
That's great. Thank you, Newport News. I want to welcome some new members, new participants. The town of Vinton. Anita, I know that you've participated some as well, but I wanted to welcome Nathan McClung from the town of Vinton. They're class 8, and it's wonderful to have you all here. Vinton's out near Roanoke. And so if you all have anything you want to contribute to the good of the discussion, we'd love to hear from you all.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're happy to y'all allowed us to attend today. It was very beneficial. I did have a quick question. We just sent our ordinance to be reviewed as a courtesy. And the language specifically referring to electrical and mechanical devices, our current ordinance says shall be designed and or located so as to prevent water from entering or accumulating, blah, blah, blah. So does that language designed and or located, I mean, would that be sufficient, or do we need to be more exact about the 1 foot BFE or prevent or designed to prevent water from entering? I'm just trying to see if we need to go through an ordinance revision for this specific parameter or not, based on the conversation today.
Nathan, I'm having Michelle Olivier help me with those ordinance reviews, but I just sent her the piece that we got from Mary Carson. I had not seen that. Again, Florida was the one really pushing that, and so I hadn't seen it yet in being applicable for Virginia. So we will be looking back over yours. I know that you were doing some emails back and forth with her today. So we will look at that and get back to you, but I don't have a clear answer right now. If that's the only piece that you're concerned about, again, if you want to make it more clear so that you don't have to go through all of the building code, everybody making sure that you're following that piece from over there and it still applies to this stuff over here, you're welcome to do an ordinance update to make it crystal clear in your ordinance, but Michelle and I will look at that new letter and set of emails to see how it applies.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah, this is Anita. Yes, I'd like to, as a follow-up to what Nathan has confirmed, we need to also making sure that Roanoke County, because they are the one that enforcing the building code requirement, we do have separate ordinance because, the zoning is different in the town and the county. I just want to make sure of that when we do need to amend that the county building code division is aware of it, so.
Yep, that's a
not
good point.
just about what's in your ordinance, it's about what you're actively enforcing as well. And we do look at the elevation certificates and how they come in and where they get scored as, yes, it may be in your ordinance, but if you're not enforcing it, or if you're issuing too many variances, then your credit is impacted as well. So definitely have those conversations with those who enforce the building codes, that those electric, mechanical, and equipment elevations are also up to that 1 foot freeboard.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vinton. We're so happy that you're here. This is another example of how counties kind of enforcement of town practices that overlap. There can be some incongruencies or inconsistencies. And that's something that we don't really experience out here very much, just in like our core group of communities, because we're made up of mostly cities, but on the Eastern Shore, they run into some of this too. Okay, great. York County.
Hey, yeah, we got our 30-day letter yesterday, and we're just hoping to stay at a 7. And I had not read the new addendum, so we're dealing with a bunch of new things and having to pull a lot of data together, but we'll get through it. And I'm working with Tracy. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Bologna, out of Indianapolis or Indiana, somewhere in there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kent. Let's see, Norfolk.
Hey, everybody. We're still going through our cycle verification. We've had our second round of ECs, and we actually were assigned Michelle, I think Olivier, as our person, and we've made contact with her. I guess we had some questions and we were still trying to look through the new addendum because we weren't expecting our application or our request to go through the new year. So possibly, and we haven't like actually gone and, made any type of, request, but it's, could we still apply possibly to, with the new addendum credits? Like there's certain things that we've been doing that maybe we could get credits for. Because we started our cycle verification visit in August, but it's been prolonged for many different reasons. And we haven't had the chance to actually go through the addendum, and it was kind of like, oh, it's January. So this isn't like official yet or anything, but that was kind of one of our thoughts is, since we're still going through it, we still haven't received our technical review feedback and things like that. That was one thing. And Emily may reach out to you later about that. We're still kind of mulling it. So it wasn't something that's official or even, I'm not sure if I probably should have brought it up.
For right now, what I think our policy is that it's dependent on the date of your cycle visit. If your cycle visit was January 1st or more recent, then you apply the addendum. If your cycle visit date was in 2020, then you're on the 2017 manual without the addendum. So I don't know about the gray area of if your visit was in 2020 and you want to apply. I think that if it was to happen you want to use the addendum, you're going to have to use all of it, not just parts of it. Because I know that there are some pieces in there about sea level rise, about more activity, more elements in 370, and some other pieces that changed. But I know that we're not doing piecemeal. You can get some of this, but not have to deal with that. It's definitely going to be either all of it applies or none of it applies. So it's going to depend on when your cycle visit date was, and then if it's not a clear separation, then let me know, and we can I can ask up the chain. Are we doing this at all for 2020 communities who want communities who want to do the addendum? I can ask that up the chain to get a clear answer. I will say that on the crsresources.org website, on the training page, we have two webinars a month, but coming up on February 16th, the topic is the addendum. So I put a link to that or a mention of that in the chat. And then February 17th, the next day, is a webinar on the changes to the elevation certificates. Because that is a big change on how we process those. They'll be scored at your time of annual recertification, which for Virginia is third quarter. And so everybody is submitting this year in your third quarter rather than skipping because of a cycle visit was too close or is still open. But that's a really great place to go to get more information on those. Sorry.
Thank you. I don't have anything else. It's pretty much the same old. We're still plugging along.
Thank you, Tristan. Chesapeake. I know Jay's on. I don't know who else.
I think I asked all my questions I was allotted during the discussion on the CRS. Nothing new other than that. We were pursuing, and I think we still will be, a change in our floodplain ordinance. And we had one of those unique situations where we were completely in compliance, except for some reason, well before my time, we carved out ductwork as not needing to meet the requirement. So we're going to kind of scratch that off and just treat everything consistent with our freeboard. And we're moving ahead with that, with or without Florida, I think.
Okay, great. And y'all are at 1.5 feet. So I think technically you met that threshold anyway. And I know there was discussion about possibly going to 2, but I don't know where y'all are with that.
We were, and we are doing that. We kind of heard Virginia Beach was doing something, and we kind of wanted to time it together so people wouldn't shop around and say, well, they're easier than you guys, and maybe we'd all be similar. So that was our philosophy, and I don't think Virginia Beach has moved ahead, so we're kind of going to ride their coattails.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. Accomack, Tom.
Just working on my ordinance updates too, and trying this week to finish our construction certificate management procedures, a new required item.
Nice. You have to tell us how that goes, Tom, when you're finished.
Well, the template's there, so that's very helpful.
Good. Okay, thank you. Let's see. So Derek from VIMS, do you have anything to add? We're going to do our non-community folks first. I don't know if Derek, if you're still there. If not, we'll switch over. Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy. Sorry, Tammy. Town of Smithfield, nothing to report. Okay, I know Tammy has audio issues sometimes. Thanks, Tammy. Okay, who's next? HRPDC.
Yes, just a couple quick updates. We wrapped up the third phase of the first floor elevations work in November, and that report is now available online. So I'll put a link to that in the chat. And we included a section in there about the potential to earn CRS credit for having the elevation certificates on HRGO, or rather that list of addresses and information recorded from the certificates. The certificates themselves aren't public. And then also about activity 440, because with the data being entered in GIS, there's potential to earn credit for that as well. So put that in the chat and a link to the data. And then just one other thing, we've been working on considering some updates to the Get Flood Fluent content. And for any of the Hampton Roads communities on the call, is just we're wondering if you are getting credit currently for content that's on Get Flood Fluent. So if you just want to, say something now or put your name in the chat so we know, that would be helpful. I think that's all I have. I don't know if Ben has anything he wants to add, but.
I have nothing else. I think I missed the bulk of the meeting, so I'll follow up later.
Okay.
Internet, right?
Internet, man. Thanks, HRPDC. Okay, how about AMT, Jenny?
Hi, sorry, I was muted. I don't have much to add. Working with Newport News, as they said, so it's going to be a busy 30 days here, and also continuing to work with Hampton and Henrico as well. And I know Kristen's on the call, so she'll update you on Henrico.
Oh my gosh, Kristen. Henrico, sorry.
I kind of feel like Jay, like I already said a lot. So, we are working on getting ready to have our first kickoff. I think there was already a kickoff meeting, but a kickoff meeting now since I've been employed there to work with all of our other departments to get started on pulling together our CRS applications. I'm also working on an ordinance update and just pulling together different information. We're getting ready to start like our mapping and all of that. So just chugging along still.
Okay, great. Okay, who else? Who am I missing? I don't know. I think I've hit everybody. I don't know who this Antonio person is or the cell phone number. Oh, Kurt. Kurt. Nope. Okay. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I was having a phone call at the same time you were calling.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Hey, just wanted to update everybody. Our company, floodproofing.com, has expanded our non-proprietary educational program offerings. We have 5 now that we're using nationally. We're getting a lot of great feedback on them. Doing obviously webinar-based programs, either locally, by community. We're also doing state held and regional held offerings as well on these. So getting quite a bit of feedback on that. We've got a new lineup, which what I'll do is I'll just send the flyer over to Mary Carson. Maybe that's something you can share with the group. If you're interested, give us a shot. We're happy to help. And again, this is just to supplement your existing outreaches in support of your 330-point efforts. So our continuing education programs, again, been revamped and updated as well. So if you have staff professionals, starving for a CEU credit or anything along those lines, obviously we can support that as well. one-on-one or in group meetings. So just wanted to let you know we've really expanded that program for us in 2021.
Cool. Yeah, send me the link and I'll link it in the meeting materials paragraph.
Very good. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Okay, so I really am sorry I don't know the cell phone number, call-in 7577 number, or this Antonio person. It might be a bot. Okay, did I miss anybody? No? Okay, good. Well, I'm sorry we went a little bit over, but not so bad. Thanks, everyone. And if you want to follow up, please, about the CBPA draft letter. Oh, someone came off of mute on the cell phone line. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was me, Stanley Skinner. That I was muted. No, I don't have any questions, and I enjoyed this.
Thank you, Stanley. Stanley is from the city of Suffolk. So glad you could join us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Comments, feedback to me or Madison, either way, on the CBPA comment letter is probably our biggest priority right now. And then I'll follow up with all the materials from the meeting. Oh, Tariq, did you want to say anything? I'm so sorry. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add, but I really enjoyed great presentation from Daryl and great input from Emily.
Cool. Okay, everyone. Well, we really appreciate y'all, and keep your eyes out for an email with information. Stay healthy and safe.
You too. Thank you.
Carson.